Hello, my name is Venom. I'm going to show you some very basic sewing skills today here in my studio in San Francisco, California. So everything that I've learned with the artwork that I do is from this very nice book called Quilting 101. Does not get much more basic than that, even says beginner's guide on here. And the reason why I bought this book is because it has a lot of photos. So this is pretty much what I looked at to figure out how to make quilts and basically to sew. So for me, I'm primarily self-taught when it comes to working within the textile medium. So if I can figure it out, you can definitely figure it out. It's pretty simple. So let's come on over here to my sewing machine. This is a Juki F600 Exceed Quilt and Pro Special. However, any machine will do. Most machines do a variety of stitches. This one does a whole bunch, as you can see here. However, I pretty much just use like a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch, which is what I'm going to demonstrate you how to use right now. So let's get started. Step one, turn the machine on. Might be obvious, but who knows? So first things first, let's see, I'm going to put a new needle in. And these are really important to switch out needles as often as possible because you break a bunch. Here is my boneyard. A lot of these have like literally broken in half and shot at my face. And yes, I have been hit in the eyeball before, and yes, it did hurt. So let's change the needle out since we're starting a new project here. We'll add this one to the boneyard. And I'll put this guy in here. So, of course, every sewing machine is different. It has its little idiosyncrasies. However, they all use a sewing machine needle. So, and of course, there's all different types of needles, depending on what type of project you're doing. Make sure that's nice and tight. There. And this is like a tool that came with my machine. I'll put it up there. So we got our needle in, and now we're going to thread our bobbin. This is a bobbin. This goes, it lives there when you're sewing, but we're going to add thread to it. So in order to do that, we're going to put it up here. And then we're going to put some thread on. This is silky red. I think it's like Christmas red. I just like it because it's kind of shiny. Probably not the best thread on the market, however, I like it. And I also use Gutermann, which is another good type of thread. All my thread is way over there, which you can't see. Just imagine a whole bunch of thread. Alright, so now, one of the most difficult things when I first started out was how to thread the machine, how to thread the bobbin, and just a very basic sewing machine skills. So let's get to it. So threading the bobbin. So put the thread in here. And most machines will give you like a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of step to how to put the thread through the machine for whatever particular process you're doing. So this one's for the bobbin. So this is what we're going to follow here, is this part here. So we're going to come through this part here, this little loop this here, come around here, catch this guy here, and then I have it here. So then I'm going to put it in my mouth, and I just brushed my teeth so it's clean. And then I'm going to put it up through here like this, and if your fingers are fat like mine, it's not always easy to do. So there you go, put that there, and I put this down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up like this, kind of taut, and then with my machine, this clicks in here, and then it goes. Alright, so then I'll stop it for a second. Then I usually just trim this off like right about, I'd say about an inch or so. Everyone's got an opinion on that, but this is what I do. And then I'll turn it back on. So it's really important that this threads properly. So one thing to keep in mind when you're sewing is that everything has to be just right for it to work. If something's wrong, nothing's going to work. So what I typically do is I pretty much start all the way over. So always make sure that this is threaded properly, and that when the thread goes onto the bobbin, that it's nice and taut, like you can see here. So you can see the tension's pretty good. And it takes about maybe like 20-30 seconds, depending on how big your bobbin is. So we'll give it a second there, and then we'll stop it, and I'll pick it up, and then I'll cut it here. So now I'm going to place the bobbin into where it's going to live while we're sewing. So I'll pop this off, and it goes in like this. So this is important. So threads on this side, I place it down into there, and then I pull, and so you can see 1, 2, 3. So this awesome Juki machine has these awesome little diagrams because Japanese are the best. And then I come around here, and then there's a little blade there, and I'll cut that. All right, and now I'm ready to thread the machine. So I have my thread here. So what we're going to follow is these steps here. So the thread's going to come here, wrap around here, come down here, catch this part, come down here, loop into there, go into the needle, and pop up there. Everybody get that? Doubtful. All right, let's try it. So I'll pull some thread out. Going to go into here, come there, come down here, loop down here, come up. So this part, you want this little part here, you want that up. I'm going to come and then wrap around it. Then I'm going to come back down here. And then I'm going to catch this part here. This part, it needs to go through there. So there's a little thing you kind of slide around there. Now, my machine is super awesome, and it threads the needle itself. Yours probably doesn't, because your machine is probably like a shitty Honda Accord. My machine is a souped-up bitchin' Camaro. So I would suggest you upgrade to the bitchin' Camaro, because threading the needle is a massive pain in the ass. So watch this. Boom, threaded. There we go. Ignore that mess up there. We'll try it again. It's only live. Oh, Satan. There we go. Alright, had to warm it up a little bit. There we are. Alright, cool. So then I'll pull this out a little bit now. So now what we got to do is we got to drop this needle down into that hole there, and we got to catch the bobbin thread. So in order to do that, is I'm going to hold this a little taut with my left finger, and then I'm going to come over here. This operates the manual part of the needle, so when I do this, you come over here, Megan. When I move this knob, it makes the needle go up or down. So I'm going to go down like that, and then I'm going to come back up. I'm going to slightly pull on the thread here, which, of course, just totally did it wrong. So we'll try that again.
Someone's asking for the model number of your Juki, so I'll get that while you do that.
It is a Juki F600, F-600. And this is my second Juki that I've had because I literally blew my other one to hell. Which brings up a good point. Please take care of your machine. It's a delicate item, and it's expensive. Okay, there we go. Alright, well, imagine that the thread is working. Alright, there. Then I popped it out. As you can see, I'm having a lot of fun today. There we go. A former teacher of mine once said, in order to succeed in life, you have to fail in public. So hopefully I have some more success coming, because that was an epic shit fail with just doing the most basic of things. So hopefully it doesn't happen to you. But on the third frickin' try, I got the bobbin thread up. Okay, cool. Hopefully you get it on the first try. Alright, so we'll put this back down. This is important because that keeps the bobbin in place. Put that down there. Have a pair of scissors handy. These are fabric scissors. Don't use these for paper. I use them only for fabric. My wife is not allowed to touch them or even look at them. Sorry, Meg. Alright, so these are a lot of the stitches here, but I'm going to show you how to do a straight stitch, which is the most basic stitch. For my machine, it's number 1. So I'll hit the number 1 button, so that's number 1 up there. These knobs determine the length of the stitch or the width of the stitch. Since we're doing a straight stitch, all we can play with is the length of the stitch, so you'll see here. So I got this. This is the foot. We call this the pressure foot. And then if you come back here, Maggie, you pan around, this drops the foot down, like that. So I'm going to drop it down. Now I'm ready to sew. So then, I have the stitch I selected, I want the straight stitch. Have everything turned on. So I typically position my hands like this. I'll drop this down. Put my hands like this, and I'm going to be pushing this way. And then I have my pedal down here, so I'm literally going to put the pedal to the metal. So I'm going to press down with my right foot. Alright, here we go.
What material are you using?
I'm just doing, this is just canvas. It's just a scrap of fabric I pulled from my highly unorganized scrap pile. I would always suggest before starting a new project is just try the machine out or a different stitch out on some scrap before you ruin what you really want to use. So I have a lot of scrap lying around that I kind of test out stuff with. So here we go. Alright, so typical straight stitch. And we go pretty fast. So then it's a lot of stopping and going. So with sewing, I found it's like you go for little spurts, stop, adjust, go, stop, just, adjust, go. So then we sewed there, we came to the end, and if you pan around here, Megan, what you want to do is kind of lock the stitch in, and so I'm going to go into reverse. So I'm going to hit this, and it's going to back a little bit over what I did, and then I'll come forward a little bit, and that's to kind of lock the stitch in. And then, as again, I have a bitchin' Camaro sewing machine, has a little button that it kind of ties it and locks it. Your shitty Honda Accord probably doesn't. Bummer for you. Alright, there. So that's a nice straight stitch. You can see how, let's get one of my favorite tools, the Seam Ripper. Should be a metal band called Seam Ripper. Seam Ripper here, so you can kind of see the length of the stitch, of the straight stitch there. So I'll do one that's a little bit longer just so you can tell. We'll do this real quick. Dropping the pressure foot down and ready to sew. Okay, stopping, backing up a little bit, and then cutting off. So you can kind of see the difference. This one is a little bit longer stitch. So now let's try a different stitch. I use the zigzag stitch a lot in the work that I do. I typically make really large quilts. So I'm going to choose my zigzag stitch. With my machine, it's a number 4. So I'm going to press number 4. And here you can tell it's a zigzag because it even looks like a zigzag. And then this knob here determines how wide the zigzag is. This knob here determines how tight it is. So I'm going to make it, let's do a 3. Then I'm going to make it super tight. So a 3.2. So let's see how that looks. Dropping it down and sewing. We'll backtrack a little bit, lock it in, cut it, take a gander. So, for pretty much all the artwork that I do, if you see my artwork in a gallery or a museum and you walk up close to it, this is what you'll probably see. Because I typically use this type of stitch for the vast majority of the artwork that I do. However, a straight stitch is really useful also. I use the straight stitch when I do the final quilting stitch within my artwork. And let's do another wider version just so you get an idea of what that looks like. I also like to make it kind of wide too because it looks kind of cool. So we'll make it very wide and we'll also not make it as tight. Alright, there we go. Lock that in. And there we have it. So now you can kind of see a compare and contrast of what we're doing here. So this was the one that was really wide and not too tight. This was the zigzag that was super tight and about, I think it was a 3.0 width. Most machines should do a zigzag, so it's something I would encourage you to play around with. And all machines should do a straight stitch. The first machine I had was a Brother XL 2610, and I bought that on Amazon for I think like $100. I still have it and I still use it. It's a great machine. This one is a little bit more expensive. I've had it for about a couple months, but the one I had before it I had for about close to 10 years. So something to keep in mind, they do last really long as you're not ramming all kinds of stupid shit through it like me. And again, always keep changing the needle out and just do the typical routine maintenance. One thing for me, when I first started out, is I'd always ask a lot of questions. So anytime I went to the fabric store, I'd ask the fabric store employees questions about how to use the machine, what type of fabric is good, and I'd also reach out to other artists that I know that are really talented within the textile medium and ask them a ton of questions. And of course I'd always call my mom. So, you know, even to this day I reach out to different people and asking how to do this or do that. So one thing that I've always kind of looked about when for the artwork that I do is never let your lack of knowledge hinder you from taking your idea to completion, and that's something that I always recommend to my students, and I would of course recommend to you also. So even though you might not know how to do something, doesn't matter, there's always a way to figure it out. Which brings up a good point, is don't throw away your sewing machine manual, because it is quite useful. So now I'll do a little sewing on a patch. So this is a little patch here. This is canvas, and it has a backing of a stabilizer that I put on that'll hold the stitching in. So I'll do some sewing here, and I'll post a image of this on my Instagram account at Venom, so that you can see it when it's all finished. And if anyone has any questions about anything, feel free to email me or hit me up on the DM. I guess that's what you call it, right? Direct message. And I'll do my best to answer your questions. So, I'm going to do a little sewing here, and just real quick, the straight stitch that I just showed you how to use. Of course, currently we're in a shelter-in-place order here in San Francisco, California, and I know there's a lot of things going around with the pandemic right now. So there has been an open call out for cloth face masks, so I've made a couple, and they're only made with the straight stitch, so you don't need to do any kind of complex stitching in order to make these. Really simple patterns, and I'm happy to email or message anyone that wants this particular pattern. But these were all made with just a straight stitch on this machine here, and they took me about 15 to 20 minutes. It did take me a couple tries to actually figure out how to make it, so again, if I could figure it out, you could figure it out. It's a pretty simple pattern. And so if you want to do hem your jeans, make a face mask, make a patch, make a gigantic quilt, you're off and ready to go. So I'm going to do a quick patch here, and Megan's going to play some really loud music. Or not. Okay. Alright, so that concludes our little tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and thanks you again for your time, and thank you to Megan for filming. Have a good one. Cheers.